Violating the ceasefire, terrorist groups detonate a booby-trapped car in Damascus countryside. Lavrov asserts to Mr. al-Ibrahimi the necessity of convincing all parties in Syria to observe a ceasefire and move to a political dialogue. And al-Ibrahimi says we shall work with all parties inside and outside Syria to reduce violence and end it. For the fourth day running, terrorist groups continue to violate the ceasefire announced by the Syrian Arab Army Command. In Jaramana and Damascus countryside, the terrorists detonated a booby-trapped car, killing 10 people and causing damage to 20 vehicles and 15 shops in the area. The explosion took place in a Rawda quarter. The victims included women and children and left more than 50 others wounded. And in Deir ez-Zor, terrorist groups carried out attacks on sabotage in the countryside of the governorate in the area of Ashhel. The Syrian Arab Army and armed forces confronted them, inflicted heavy casualties among them and destroyed a number of their vehicles. In Homs, and in another violation of the ceasefire at the hands of the terrorist groups, which attacked army roadblocks in the Babhoud and the area of Az-Zafarani in Al-Rastan countryside. The Syrian Arab Army units confronted the terrorists and inflicted heavy casualties among them, destroying their equipment. In Aleppo, a terrorist group launched a homemade missile on a residential building in Al-Hamadaniya neighborhood. Syrian TV reporter said it caused only material damages. The General Command of the Army and Armed Forces announced yesterday that terrorist groups continued their violations of the ceasefire for the third day running. The terrorists committed these violations in the countryside of Damascus, Homs, Hama, Aleppo, Idlib and Deir ez-Zor. The General Command asserted that such gross violations proved that the terrorists were carrying out a foreign plot to fragmentize and destroy the country. This makes it inevitable to confront them in order to get rid of their evil crimes. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov affirmed that Russia supported the efforts of the UN envoy to Syria, Al-Akhdar al-Ibrahimi, to resolve the crisis and launch a political dialogue since the beginning, which is the same principle adopted in the Geneva Agreement, voicing concern over the escalation of violence in the country. In a joint press conference with al-Ibrahimi on Monday, Lavrov said his talks with the UN envoy seek to find new steps to end violence and the bloodshed in Syria and launch dialogue, regretting that al-Ibrahimi's efforts for a truce during Eid al-Adha holiday were not productive. He also affirmed the need for the international community to support dialogue between the Syrian government and the opposition, noting that there were sides that hindered the work of international observers in Syria and are currently hindering dialogue and efforts to achieve peace. For his part, al-Ibrahimi said that the bombings committed by some groups in residential areas are classified as acts of terrorism committed by groups he had no contact with, saying that such actions were condemned by the Security Council, UN Secretary General and all foreign sides. Al-Ibrahimi said that the Syrian government announced its commitment to halt military operations within Eid al-Adha holiday and that a small number of opposition forces, according to him, did likewise, which is why other sides are accused of violating the ceasefire. He warned that the situation in Syria is bad and getting worse, and that the international community must work together to help Syrians and resolve the crisis. The Chinese Foreign Ministry announced that Mr. al-Ibrahimi would visit Beijing during this week in order to discuss ways and means of finding a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria. The spokesperson of the ministry said in a press conference that China has constantly expressed support for the UN envoy and called upon the parties concerned in Syria to respond positively to the ceasefire during the Eid vacation. He added that Beijing hoped that all parties would take this opportunity to make the ceasefire permanent. The Chinese paper Global Times quoted Chinese intelligence sources as having said that armed men from the movement of Islamic Eastern Turkestan, which is active in the autonomous province of Xinjiang Uyghur in China, were fighting against the Syrian army within the opposition forces. A source in the counter-terrorism agencies told the paper that terrorist organization in Eastern Turkestan organized the travel of their members to Syria. They have been going there since last May and establishing contacts with Al-Qaeda in order to fight against the Syrian government. The paper added that the Chinese fighters received support from Al-Qaeda and gained money from smuggling drugs and weapons, in addition to kidnapping people and looting operations. And with this, we reach the end of our news for today. For more details, visit our website in English, www.syriaonline.sy. For now, stay with us. After the break, Denise has the latest in economy.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Directorate of Agriculture in Latakia stressed that there are over 9.4 million olive trees in the governorate cultivated on 50,000 hectares and that the harvest has started. The Directorate also pointed out that they are expecting the production to be over 160,000 tons of olives and 30,000 tons of oil, whereas the oil quality for this season is quite good due to the recent rainfalls. The manager of the olive oil department in the governorate explained that there are 132 olive miles distributed all over the governorate, working full blast to help speed the olive pressing. In France, the Housing Loans Watch stressed that the old residential properties loans are still going down as the real estate market in France is down to a 3-year level, adding that this is the worst during the real estate crisis. The Housing Loans Agency also pointed out that the real estate loans for purchasing old houses is about 8% down, as it will decline to 115 billion euros by the end of 2012, which means that the finance for loans fell by 30%. While the employment statistics show that the number of unemployed people rose to over than 3 million people, and there are no indicators to show that this will get better. An article published in the Financial Times mentioned that more than 150 companies in the US warned from the impacts of the increasing taxes and spending cuts which will be made to the US's new budget scheduled on January the 2nd. It also warned from falling into a new financial crisis which may cause a new downturn in the US, and this could affect various parts of the world. The National Industrial Companies Union said that the fears concerning the coming financial policy reduced the economic growth by more than 0.6% in the US this year. The Prime Minister of Japan, Yoshihiko Noda, warned that unless government is allowed to issue some new bonds, the government's fast performance may stop. Noda also stressed that if these circumstances continued, the administrative bodies would stop working, which will significantly impact the daily life of the citizens and will hinder the economic recovery. He said that the government bonds which can be issued should cover about 40% of the budget till March 2013, but the government is forced to postpone part of the government expenditures, particularly on the local associations, due to the blocking process. Brent crude fell by more than $1 per barrel because of the refineries on the east coast of the United States stopped their operations as Hurricane Sandy is approaching. thereby reducing the use of oil in the largest consuming country in the world. European stocks fell because of the case of uncertainty about the possibility of reaching an agreement to save Spain, in addition to fears of weak results posted by major companies in the region. In Tokyo, Nikkei index closed on a small change as disappointment due to the warnings on profits overturned hopes that Japan's central bank may expand its financial stimulus program, as the members will meet tomorrow to talk about this issue. Gold prices rose after the American economic data raised the prices during the previous session, but gains may be limited due to the high US dollar and the continuing worries about Greece's debt problems, in addition to possibility of providing Spain with a bailout. The yen stabilized and began the week above its low levels that it slopped to last week, with the investors overlooking the financial stimulus program that the Bank of Japan may take, and they have their focus on the factors of the US economy. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.